Hey, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. I'm your host, Joe Slepsky, and this week we have such a spectacular episode. It's more than special. It's spectacular because this is my favorite episode of all time. And so I needed to bring in a guest from a fandom that is worthy of this episode of G.I. Joe. My special guest, my spectacular guest this week, no less, is Mr. Aaron Harvey from Saturday Morning Trek Podcast. Aaron, welcome to Joe on Joe.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.
Aaron is a huge Star Trek fan. You can find him on Instagram and Twitter at GeekFilter. Aaron, you're a graphic designer by trade, is this correct?
Yep.
And you've worked on some things in the Star Trek universe, like you've designed some Star Trek T-shirts.
Yep.
And you've done some work with like the DC social media stuff.
Yeah, we did some animated Batgirl GIFs. We did some fun Black Canary posters and things like that. So
fantastic. And for as you ply your trade, you've worked on the WalkingDead.com website.
Yep.
And the In-N-Out Burger website, which is not only a delicious burger, but a fantastic website. This is all true.
Yes.
Okay, this is not just a thing you tell me at the store?
No, it is not.
Awesome. You're super
I
talented.
actually got the Walking Dead job because of hanging out at the store.
The store being Golden Apple Comics at Melrose and La Brea, right across from Pink's in beautiful L.A., where actually, if your listeners are out there, we just got a huge supply of G.I. Joe comic books in. I personally went through them, and I personally marked them up. They're priced to move. So if you're in the L.A. area and you want some G.I. Joe comic books, stop by Golden Apple Comics.
You personally took all the best ones for you.
No, hey, listen, I have them all. Otherwise, yes, I would have. So that's how I know Aaron. I'm very excited to have him on today because he also has something that every single person listening here should go out and seek out. On February 15th, issue number 3 of the Star Trek Green Lantern comic book crossover is hitting the stores. And Mr. Harvey here did one of the variant covers.
Yes. I had posted some pictures that I was doing of the new Discovery TV show that's coming out eventually. And the editor from IDW had noticed them and asked if I was going to be at Star Trek Las Vegas. And I said, sure. And I went up and talked to her, and it's like, oh, we're always looking for, variant cover artists. And it was just like, wow. So... And, it's one of those things like, oh, okay, sure, I'll eventually hear from you, and then I won't ever hear from you. Yeah. And then, like, a couple weeks later, I got a message, and it's like, hey, do you want to do one of these covers for Star Trek Green Lantern? And, of course, I jumped on it.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
And
I still don't believe it happened. I'm just like, I'm waiting for them to go, no, we're actually not publishing this. Sorry.
In 6 weeks, it's just a huge prank.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, listeners, it is how to describe the cover. I really love it. Aaron's got a really clean design. I've seen some of his other design work. It's very clean. It's very modern looking. And the image is that of Hal Jordan flying through space and kind of charging or blasting his ring out. And from his Green Lantern ring, concentric circles are kind of emanating. And those circles form the shape of the Enterprise. So it's Hal flying underneath the Enterprise through space, blasting the image of the Green Lantern, like the logo over it. It's gorgeous. It's very black with lots of green highlights.
Yep.
Yeah, it's awesome. So it's one of the variant covers from the IDW DC crossover. Go to your local comic shop, which we all want you to support, and make sure you track this cover down.
And look at the other covers too, because they what I really like about IDW is you'll see other people they have we have variant covers because obviously they want to sell more books,
right?
But these are covers that I want to get. Like even if I don't read the book, sometimes it's like I just want to put that in a frame because they just look really great.
Yeah, IDW is really killing it with the licensed properties these days. We've talked about it a lot with G.I. Joe with the Hasbro crossovers with ROM and Mask and
we have an idea for a crossover,
which we have an idea for a crossover. And frankly, I'll put this out there to the winds. I suggested this at an event we had at Golden Apple. I suggested this to one of the publicity guys at DC. So if you're listening to DC and IDW, please do this. I want to see a G.I. Joe Suicide Squad crossover. I want to see it today because what would be more amazing? The Suicide Squad is not an overly superpowered team. They're a small strike force. You get a G.I. Joe strike force going. You bring in a Cobra strike force, and hijinks will ensue. This is what I want to see. They're already doing these Green Lantern and Star Trek IDW DC crossovers. Let's make G.I. Joe Suicide Squad happen. We were talking about how great the covers were.
Yeah.
Tommy Lee Edwards is killing it on those Mask covers.
Yes.
Killing it.
It's fun because it has, it feels like the toys and the boxes and everything that they had, but it still has a modern flavor to it.
Yeah, it's got his artwork looks a little bit like remember old Atari artwork?
Yes, I was just going to say the exact same thing.
Yeah, it looks like Atari artwork, which I love. I've always enjoyed his stuff. And seeing these mask covers, which like you're saying, they're crushing it with covers. And now you're going to be next in line with people going, wow, they're really killing it with these covers.
I hope.
Oh, I know it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Aaron, you have a Star Trek podcast.
Yes, it is Saturday Morning Trek. It's a podcast about Star Trek, the animated series, and all things Trek in the 1970s. We're going to talk about the movies that weren't made, the television show that wasn't made, and also like the power records. Some of the the goofy. We have the white Uhura and the black Sulu and all these people that are
I didn't know that was a thing.
Oh, they didn't know how to draw the characters, and they had sound alikes on the records, and they had these comics that went with it, and you could tell that it was like, it's licensed. It looked close enough. Fine, just whatever. We'll put it out. Licensing in the 70s was so much different than it is today. Now it goes through it. It is an industry. Back then it was, but it wasn't. It
was a check that they cashed once a month, and they said, you go for it.
Yeah.
Go do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. When the finished product came out, if they were happy with it, they went on. If they weren't, they called someone and yelled at them. And the next time they did it, maybe they checked in a little closer.
It's you get the Star Trek. It's a gun that has the word Star Trek on it. So suddenly it's a Star Trek gun, and you're
right.
No.
Aaron's podcast is a lot of fun. Everyone. He primarily they focus on the animated series as we talked about. He actually had me on as a guest. I'm not sure when that episode's going to air, but it was so much fun. It was a lot
of fun.
Yeah, the cast of the crew of the Enterprise, specifically Spock and Kirk, get turned into underwater mermen. Which there's an episode of G.I. Joe, quite frankly, that shipwreck falls in love with a merwoman. So, which we haven't done it yet, but it's coming. It's right around the corner. So there's some parallels there.
Nice.
And yeah, it was a whole lot of fun. So go listen to Saturday Morning Trek. Look for my episode when we know exactly when it's going to air. I'll definitely give it a plug. And I'm so excited to have you on today, because the reason I wanted to have a Star Trek expert on is because we're doing Worlds Without End. Today is part 1, and next week we're going to listen to part 2. And this is, hands down, my favorite episodes of G.I. Joe. They go to alternate realities, and as a 10-year-old kid, I looked it up. It aired November 4th, I think, 1985. I was 10 years old. It was one of my first forays into alternate realities and into just the concept of, the other in that regard. And
she does a pretty succinct explanation of what an alternate universe, Lady J.
She really does. Yeah, no, that's the thing. They do a really good job with this.
My question is, why do we have to explain it over and over again on television today when in 1985 the cartoon woman is like totally, like she's got it.
You make a good point. They're like, they have to do a whole episode of Flash. A whole season of Flash.
Yeah.
In order to think that you kind of get the concept.
What do you mean different?
Like, no.
Oh my God.
Get it.
Do you watch television?
Yes, just do it. Get into it.
Yes.
When I think of alternate realities, I think of two things. I do think of DC's Crisis on Infinite Earths. I think of DC and comics and just all the multiple Earths they have. But then immediately I think of Star Trek, and how much both those two concepts influence each other and interchange each other.
And Fringe.
And
another one.
Yeah, absolutely. So for you, Star Trek, alternate realities, they've done so many of them. Do you have a kind of a favorite take on it? Because there was the Spock and Kirk with the goatees, alternate realities. There was the in the Next Generation, they had one when they were all right.
Yesterday's Enterprise, where the Enterprise C ends up falling through like a hole in time, and therefore was not there at a critical point to save a Klingon ship from Romulans.
Right.
And then it starts a war with the Klingons, basically. And so they go from being, the exploration starship to the warship Enterprise, and they're down to hardly anything. They're losing the war badly, and it turns out they have to send the ship back, even knowing that everybody's going to die, because it will save so many more people in the future. And
didn't the one person survive from that reality, or she stayed in the reality?
She stayed. Yeah, it was Tasha Yar who died in season 1,
who was Bing Crosby's granddaughter.
Yes.
Right.
And she went back in time to help them with some kind of advantage. And later we learned that she actually did survive, and then she went to a Romulan internment camp and had a baby, and that she ended up being like part Romulan.
Yes, and she played her own daughter.
Yes.
And yeah.
So that had a fun, it wasn't in the mirror universe in the classic sense. They did that in Deep Space Nine.
Okay.
But there was also another episode later down the road where basically this quad, I can't remember exactly how it happened, but they started getting multiple Enterprises just from all different realities showing up. There was one where they were almost destroyed by the Borg completely.
Wow.
And like, don't send us back. And Wesley in this universe is still on the show, and he says, Captain, we're getting 245,000 hails.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. Yeah. Yes, yeah.
I don't think that's the number, but it was a lot of it.
It was a lot. Yes.
Yeah. And he goes, by the end of the week, if we don't do something, this entire quadrant will be filled with Enterprises. So,
yes.
And I thought it was really cool to see all those different variations. And it turns out that it was Worf was done something, and so they had to send him back to his own reality.
Oh, Worf.
Yeah.
Always blaming Worf.
And never listening to Worf either. They have a compilation somewhere of where he suggests something, and the captain says no.
Yeah, and isn't when Worf's the guy that they always use? They beat up Worf in order to show how strong the enemy is, right?
Yeah,
like even though he's the baddest dude,
right?
He's also always the first one to get taken
thrown
out.
Across the room.
Yeah, because
Data.
Yeah, you have to establish that the bad guy's really strong, and then I think most. No, I don't know. I don't know most listeners. I don't know what's the most popular with our crew, but the biggest profile alternate reality literally is the movies, the current string of movies.
Yeah,
they all take place in the Kelvin universe, which is different from what do they call in the main timeline?
It's just the prime timeline.
The prime timeline. Yeah. So all the big screen movies that we're getting which I think are wonderful. There was a lot of plot problems with Inner Darkness.
Yeah.
But still, overall, the production values were great. And I think the performances are great.
Well, we always I call Star Trek Into Darkness. Star Trek, we put Wrath of Khan into a blender and press pulse.
Yeah, it's true.
If it had been a different character or something like that, it could have been totally fine.
Yeah.
Although there's still some issues.
Yeah, there was a few issues with that. That movie relied so much on us knowing and understanding that the United Planet, not the United Planets, the Federation, is supposed to be super peace-like.
Right.
So even though all we've seen them is shooting lasers and blowing stuff up, so when they show, hey, we got a big warship, me is kind of a neophyte, not a huge Trekkie.
You're like, so?
I'm like, so what?
Yeah.
That's great. You built a big warship, good for you. RoboCop, build it. Of course, RoboCop, go for it.
That was the problem, I think, overall, is that if you knew enough to know what was going on, you were angry because they were just messing it up and just kind of taking things just to do it as opposed to like a reason. And if you didn't know it, you're like, am I supposed to know who this person is?
Yeah. Am I supposed to care that you built a bigger warship? Because everything I've seen so far does a really good job of blowing stuff up.
Yeah. So that was weird.
Yeah.
Carried over from the episode that we recorded, it's interesting to have all these people all the ins and outs of all the alternate universes and the episodes we talked about, and then get completely hung up on the fact that these are not the original characters and how dare they have this. It's like, it's another alternate universe. Yeah. Can't you take it as that?
Right.
If you don't like it, don't watch it.
Yeah,
it doesn't replace the other timeline.
Exactly. It's just like, honestly, it's like when they do the big screen G.I. Joe movies, which we've talked about a little bit on the show, on my show. Yeah, there's some problems with it, but in the bigger picture, it's bringing G.I. Joe to a new world. And if it gets people to go back to the stuff that we really love and get them curious about it, which is what the Star Trek movies did for me.
Are you talking about the live action?
The live action. Yeah, like if it gets someone to go, oh, let me check out what the original cartoons were all about.
Yeah,
that's great. And let the movies stand on their own. For me,
and we have sort of the reverse. Well, kind of like that, I guess, with the animated series. It's like, if you really like the original series, you check out the animated series because it's like seeing episodes. Yeah, because they're written by the original. A lot of the original writers. They're very
Star Trek animated series is really good.
Yeah.
I've watched a bunch of. I've not seen every episode, but I did watch a bunch of it on my own, regardless before I even knew you, and I really enjoyed it. My wife made a lot of fun of me. My wife is, as loyal Joe and Joe listeners know, is the Tony Randall of Joe and Joe. But she was, you're watching Star Trek cartoons. I'm like, they're good. They are really like actual episodes of the original series. I mean, with a better budget. I mean, with the unlimited budget. Yeah, they could go places and do more crazy adventures.
You're like, oh, a giant Spock. That's crazy. Yeah, because the Apollo god that is 50 feet tall. That's so much more realistic.
Well, last week, so we went in order to accommodate all of our schedules. We should have been doing Worlds Without End a few weeks ago, so we've been pushing things. So literally last week's episode was the G.I. Joe: The Gods Below, which is basically could have been an episode of Star Trek. The Joes met Egyptian gods and went sailing on an Egyptian god boat through space.
Wow.
The G.I. Joe team.
I'm surprised how much science fiction-y it is sometimes.
Well, that's crazy fiction.
Well, yeah, that's
the thing. So this episode of Worlds Without End is super science-y fiction-y. Like, it's obviously it's not real science, but it's science fiction.
It has the trappings.
It totally does. And there's a MacGuffin, the device that causes it. And this is the kind of episode that I'll wrap my arms around it, and I'll watch it 100 times because it's so much fun. There's a crazy concept. Every character acts. They act independently. They act in character,
and they kind of thought the universe out a little bit too. It wasn't just like
they totally did.
It wasn't just like and my problem with the Star Wars or Star Trek parallel universe and mirror universe is that they're so relentlessly evil and stuff like that that world couldn't sustain itself. But you see that this world can't either, that they have in here, but it didn't take over the galaxy or anything like that.
Right,
so
yeah.
You could see that it was headed towards internal conflict, and then it was going to collapse eventually. And having, when we get into the episode, when we have the characters who decide to help out with that, I mean, they have a real chance. Where when in the Star Trek, when they try to get Spock of their universe to try and make a change, you could tell it probably wasn't going to be very successful, and it kind of is, and it is, and but it's like that world couldn't support itself for very long because you can't have a society that's so horribly bad.
Right. And we're going to get into it. But right before we do, look for the real motivation that they go out of their way to give Steeler. Spoiler alert, who's the star of both episodes here. They really go out of their way to give him a great motivation. It's not just, he goes to another world and he falls in love with someone there, or so, which is, we've seen that trope a million times.
Yep.
He's genuinely dissatisfied
Yeah.
with his status on the real world. And so this episode has arc, it has change, it has growth. It's got everything I love. So what do you say we get into it?
Yep, sounds good.
Awesome. Yo, Joe, indeed.
Yay.
We
it's
are
the visitor
rolling.
mothership.
It is total. Oh, my gosh. I've never thought of that. You're right. That is total. I will now never not see that. That is the mothership from V. Oh, my God. And reptile. They're reptiles.
Yep.
Wait a minute. Now that's the crossover we need to get happening. We need to get V, which DC did the V comic book.
Yes.
We need to get DC reviving the V comic book with G.I. Joe. They're
Cobra and the Visitors.
They're the origins of Cobra La. The Visitors visited Earth years ago and created Cobra La, which then created Cobra, and now the Visitors come back and they're like, we're going to reap what we've sown.
There you go.
Okay, we're going to talk about something else. Now I want to talk about a DC V Cobra crossover. That's what I want.
I drew that picture, that last freeze frame, when I was like 15.
Did you really?
Yeah. I've got it somewhere in a box.
Oh, my God. I want to see that. So we start with Worlds Without End, written by Mr. Martin Pasco. Comic book fans know and love him as Marty Pasco, of course.
Yes.
And he wrote some Star Trek.
Yes, he wrote Star Trek, the comic books, and the daily news strip, like in 82, 83.
Yes. Do you have they've collected the news strip, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have those?
I have one of them, and we're reviewing them on our show, actually.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love like
the Golden Gate Bridge.
Oh, but it doesn't blow up.
It's not.
I mean, it's not going to blow up. So we've got the Dreadnoks. They just stole plans. And, of course, there's a swamp.
Yes.
The Dreadnought stole plans and a matter transmutation device. And they're bringing it to Cobra, which, look at that
it's
sweet
inside of
base.
a tree.
Inside of a giant redwood.
No, this is the redwood. Yeah, it's not the swamp. It's the
It's
forest.
the redwood forest. So they've got this transmuter that can change the molecular structure of things.
Precisely. I was waiting for it to get digitized like Tron or something.
Yeah. And we had an appearance by Copperhead, who's one of my favorites. Look at the outfits those two random.
You know what it is? It's the ambiguously gay duo.
Oh my gosh, it's totally the ambiguously gay duo, 100%.
What I haven't got is this transmuter.
So Cobra's talking about their intentions for the transmuter, and the way they play Destro in this opening scene, because he's not in it for the rest of this the two-parter really. He's so great. He's so frustrated. He's so like, I got to deal with this hooded dope.
Yeah.
One more time. I've got a device on the way that's going to change the game. And this guy's complaining because it's not in his hands yet.
Yeah.
Literally, I got look how angry he is.
Yes.
He's like, I got a biker gang heading here with an amazing device. Could you chill out for a second?
It's not done yet. I want it.
It's not done yet.
Being a G.I. Joe is ruining my life.
We're going to check in on
I don't have
Steeler,
time for nothing else. Why do you think I ain't got a girlfriend no more?
who's a good Polish young lad.
We Mitchell, my boyfriend, and I watched this together, and he's just like, "What? It's like accent theater."
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's Lady J and Grunt and Clutch. And Steeler's complaining about his lot in life and about how G.I. Joe's ruining his social life, which I think is one of those great character bits.
And it is true when you're like in that kind of thing. It's like you don't get an outside life.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
And we rarely see that on the
Doctors
show,
or-
right?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
right.
every once in a while they'll bring in people's family. They're like, oh, but they usually use them as
Right.
hostages.
Yeah. Or mentions like my Grammy made this soup
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
Like,
Hey,
yeah.
guys, my grandma made the soup
yeah.
for a big surprise, you know. Flint is chasing Zartan. Zartan's got the plans for the Matter Transmuter, and Flint shoots him out of the sky. And the Dreadnoks, they jump in the Jeep, and they're going to follow him.
My lens of which I view this through is like, I had that toy. I had that
Yes,
toy. I remember that
yes.
commercial. Everything. Like,
Uh-huh.
I watched the show, but it was all to see what was coming out.
Yeah.
Swing into plan A.
Lady
Steeler.
J is driving that mini
Yeah.
tank vehicle, which was the Armadillo, I think is what it was. Look at this
Yeah.
shot. Look at the shot right here.
Okay.
So you've got the Dreadnoks driving in the river. Isn't that in a beautiful
Yeah.
animated shot? It's like a POV where the Dreadnoks are driving in a river and the Joes are in the Armadillo kind of going on the side. It's just gorgeous.
It's sort of doing parallax.
Yes.
Yeah. Oop.
And the tank comes flying over. You notice they made a point of showing
Those missiles?
the missile rack fly.
Yeah, that you
'cause-
lose all the time.
yeah,
Whenever,
but that's going to come in handy later.
Yes.
So they made a point of showing like this show's got everything. Clutch grabs the plans,
Right there, Zartan.
and here we go.
I reckon
Zartan's
I
about
got you
to
outgunned.
outgun Steeler with. Although if Zartan really fired those rockets,
He'd be dead.
that exhaust would
Yeah.
blow right through his chest.
Yeah.
But that's okay. We'll give him that because it was an awesome move.
I love it when G.I. Joe falls out of something. A river just shows out of nowhere. And,
Yeah.
But they also don't realize that if you fall out of the plane onto a river, it's like hitting cement. It's
Yes.
still going to kill
Yeah,
you.
Yeah. Steeler had the realization that if he was just a second slower, he would have been dead.
Yes.
And that's huge. I mean, that's life or death stakes, which you don't normally get on shows like this.
Yep.
So they all retreat into this giant redwood.
I
which-
love this treatment.
This is
Yeah.
great. Their whole base was in a rocket. And the rocket launches and they make their escape. Oh, it's so good.
I had this and it sunk in our pool.
The killer whale sunk.
Yeah.
It floated in mine.
It's supposed to float, but I had some
Oh my
sort of
gosh.
like baffle problem or
my
something.
gosh.
So every time I put it in the water, I was like, it was a sub.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love the killer whale. That was such a great toy.
Yeah.
And actually, the way it's animated really well in this, there's a couple shots where you see all the little details. You see
Yeah.
all the little depth charges on it and everything.
Yep, he's from Massachusetts or something.
Oh, yeah, you see? Yeah, the Viper's coming.
Oh God, that episode.
Yeah, I love that episode. So
The Viper.
we've got Cutter and there's Steeler and Barbecue and Airtight and Clutch and Footloose was in there. Footloose, who has the pot leaves on his helmet.
Oh, nice.
Because he's mellow, man.
Titanium armor plating to safeguard
They're cruising in the killer whale while Flint and Lady J, they're on a train that's crossing country.
With a person who talks like this.
Yeah.
Our military liaison.
It wouldn't be a G.I. Joe episode without what's about
we
to
don't
happen
Yes.
have them.
next.
The rest of our team will turn them over to you at the
Sort of Mission
rendezvous point.
Impossible-esque.
Yeah, very Mission
supposed to
Impossible,
know
and
that.
it happens all the time. Here we go.
This is as far as
Masks.
show.
It's
Yes.
Zartan
And Lady Baroness.
and
Or-
Baroness. Yeah, and Baroness in disguise. But also, they're in their masks with face masks
Yeah.
over.
How does that work?
It's amazing mask technology.
Yeah. She did look a little puffy, though, if you notice.
She totally did. So as the train's going over a bridge,
Yes.
Flint and Jay,
I love how when he falls, and then he just sort of goes,
does a
dunk.
great
I just
flip.
like somehow that slowed him down to just, I'm just going to grab this.
Yeah. So now the rest of the Joes who just showed up on the killer whale, they're gonna climb up the bridge to help rescue Jay and Flint. Right? Cutter goes off to find the rest of the plans and stuff.
Right.
So you've got this bridge, and out of nowhere, comes Copperhead, the water moccasin pilot, and for no reason at all, he's carrying the Matter Transmuter.
That's interesting.
Yeah. He has
I don't
it
know if
on
I
him.
noticed that before. I guess
Right.
yeah.
He has it on his person. And he's fighting with Steeler, and Steeler kicks his hand.
Ooh,
and
I've seen that effect
and it
before.
blows off. And it transforms the whole bridge, and there's like a crystalline structure, which then proceeds to collapse, and everyone dies. That's the show. Right. Thanks for listening to Joe on Joe.
Tune in to Saturday Morning Truck.
Tune in to Saturday Morning Truck to listen to Aaron.
Oh, no, there's more.
Oh, wait a minute. The Joes are alive as we go into the commercial break. Today's Filecard Feature is on the Crimson Guard commanders, Tomax and Xamot. Their file names are classified, which is very strange because I always thought Tomax and Xamot were their actual names. Military specialty is infiltration and espionage, sabotage, propaganda, and corporate law. The birthplace is the island of Corsica. Now spell out the name Tomax in capitals and hold it up to a mirror. It reads as Xamot. The same holds true for the actual brothers. Each is the mirror image of each other except for Xamot's facial scar. Born into a Corsican Brotherhood family, both twins served in the Foreign Legion Paras in Algeria before the officers' putsch. They honed their mercenary skills in the bush wars of Africa and South America. They were too smart to be soldiers forever. They went to Zurich and became bankers. They quickly found the ins and outs of international finance to be too haphazard for their tastes. They preferred a situation they could control. Cobra was willing to give them access to that control. Now they command legions, but their legions wear three-piece suits and fight the battles in executive boardrooms. These then are the most fearsome of the Cobra adversaries. They don't fight with steel and claw backed with muscle and honest sweat. They chase you with paper, wound you with your own laws, and kill you with the money you loaned them. Wow, what an amazing couple of characters. You know them, you love them. We've talked about them on the show so much, I was shocked to realize I hadn't done a file card on them yet. Tomax and Xamot show up constantly all over the show. They are the Weasley corporate Wall Street bankers that always get away. They always put Cobra's plans into actions. But strangely, they're also acrobats. And one of our favorite things on the show is that they're always jumping out of their own building of extensive enterprises. I think my favorite moment in the comics with them is when they showed up at the United Nations and declared Cobra Island as an official sovereign state right after they raised it from the bottom of the ocean. Their action figures were awesome, true mirror images. They had the red sash with the blue outfit and lots of Cobra sigils all over it. They also came with a rope that they could swing on, some sweet lasers, and they had their own Crimson Guards. It was like the Emperor and his Crimson Guards in Star Wars. So there's nothing not to like about Tomax and Xamot. So Tomax, Xamot, Xamot, Tomax. Let's call the whole thing off, and we salute you.
Now back to G.I. Joe.
Turns out the Joes aren't dead at all. They all survived. But where are they, Aaron?
Grand Canyon, the moon. I don't know.
It looks like a Death Valley.
Yes, it does.
It looks
look
wildly different. They
Yeah.
were formerly on a river. There was water.
Yeah,
there
it was
foliage.
very Northern California looking.
Yeah. Now they're in some kind of weird Death Valley thing. Grunt, who's there on the left, he's not featured a lot on this show. So this is a great episode for that too. He and frankly Clutch and Steeler, the three of them really aren't.
Yep.
They're not main characters. So to have them be such a focus on this is I love it.
And that limestone bridge.
So the gang's pointing out that this is the same place where they
Yeah.
were. It's just everything's like devastated.
And it's sort of interesting the way they're drawn too, because it's got really interesting rock formations. It sort of looks natural, and then it looks also. Oh, now we've got a.
Well, this is important.
Yep.
A really crazy looking bug, like a bug that doesn't look like it would exist on any planet Earth that we're familiar with, just bites Steeler in the neck.
It's like a purple, pink kind of.
Yeah, like a little bit like the bug they put in what's his name's ear. In
Oh yeah,
Gone.
just with like a bee back. or
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
And all these claws, these Cobra claws, come flying out of the sky, and they're shooting at the Joes. Now,
I had one of those too.
oh yeah, those
are fun.
they were a lot of fun
Yeah.
toys. Here's the question though: in a world, so we know in a world.
Speaking of Vipers, those are Viper sound effects too. From Battlestar Galactica.
Oh yeah, you're
the,
right.
The Cylon Raiders and the Vipers, I think both. Yeah.
In a world where we know, let's fast forward a little bit. We know that there's no Joes in this world.
Right.
Why are these Cobras shooting at them?
Maybe they have.
Maybe it's like an off limits area, and just
Yeah,
anyone
they
that
just-
comes
anybody
through.
who's there, yeah. It seems like G.I. Joe might have tried to reform at times.
Well, you know what? Yeah. So they're running.
Yeah.
And they're about to find that cavern that has a bunch of Joes.
Right.
So maybe this is an area of G.I. Joe resurgence.
Well, this is their proving grounds.
Right.
So yeah. Oh, and the cave had
fangs.
Fangs. Did you notice
Totally
that?
had fangs. And I don't mean the copter. Barkity barker. That was a Joe on Joe pun.
There you go.
Copyright.
Check this out, guys.
Footloose is so high. He's so
Hey,
high.
look at this.
Hey, dudes. Oh, my God. So they find a bunch of G.I. Joe vehicles.
Who knows? I don't care.
Well, you know what? So here's what I love about this. Flint is absolutely in character. Flint never cares about it. He always just wants to solve the mission.
Yep.
He's not going to be super concerned. Wait, real quick. That sequence is why I love the animation on the show. They easily could have just shown a guy get in a car, it rumble to life, and drive away. They did a close-up on him turning the ignition. They did a close-up on the exhaust puttering up. Like, they took the time to make it a cool visual moment.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And you felt like it was also, it sputtered a little too. The audio mixing was done nice. This is, like, okay, we rolled backwards and we rolled forward, and now we're, like, I think that's what they were trying to show.
Yeah.
Could anything else go
The engine just died on
Don't
him.
say could anything else go wrong, because it will go wrong.
It just died on you because you probably have like 2 tons worth of soldier hanging on
Well,
your
and it's how long has it been sitting there? We don't know.
So
The fact that it started is amazing.
Yeah. They come to a town, and there's like a market in town.
That has 8 bikes.
Yeah.
For sale.
Just randomly. This is very much like the movie Red Dawn at this point.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
But real quick, to the point of characterization, Flint is always very much, I'm going to solve this problem.
Yep.
He doesn't get concerned about the extra stuff. He's like, and that's what he's doing in this episode. He's like, hey, I don't think he thinks they're in an alternate world, but they could be on Mars. And he'd be like, you know what? Our goal is we got to get back to headquarters. We're going to do it. And earlier, they just Clutch realized that there was no satellite going on overhead. They couldn't reach anyone at the.
They just explained the creepy bug that was from a biological.
Right. So they just did a retinal scan of Flint, and it doesn't necessarily identify him because it wouldn't identify, but it identifies you as a non-combatant, as someone who you're not wanted, and that makes sense. Because he wouldn't be on record, but he would be if he was wanted, but he's not wanted because he's dead.
Right. Which is still interesting. It's like, that's kind of like not how that should work.
Well, yeah.
I can't identify you, then there's something wrong.
It's still
Who
Cobra.
are you? Yeah,
Cobra in any world is Cobra's
true.
Cobra's gonna Cobra, Aaron.
Yeah.
Cobra's gonna Cobra.
And this is one of my favorite parts when hey, come back here. This is U.S. money. It's not any good.
It's U.S. dollars.
That's it.
Yeah.
Absolutely worthless.
He sounds like Bruce Dern. I just recently watched The Burbs, and I'm like, you sound like Bruce Dern in that moment. So that's a really first hint.
Yeah.
That's either we're forward in time or something.
Yeah, we know this, but at the time when we were watching it,
Right, you
that
don't
might
know.
not have been like
No.
your first thought. It was
No.
like, oh, they're in an alternate universe.
Right. You must be like, oh, they
Yeah.
went forward, like they jumped out in time.
Yeah, they got knocked out or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Uncle Sam doesn't have a weather dominator,
Okay.
remember?
Weather Dominator.
Grunt.
That was from
Destro's
early on.
Very much so.
Headquarters is the only place we'll get answers we can trust.
I like how they drew this with the one guy all the way in the back.
Yeah.
I think that was Steeler. It's
Yeah,
like
who's
he's sick, so
sick
he's
and it's just
lagging
like,
behind. Yeah. So they go to the pit, and the pit is completely covered up.
And I watch the effects of the guys with the goggles. This is kind of hilarious. So
By
this
the way,
is
I want that
yeah.
sign. I want that somewhere in a building that I work with one day.
Okay.
I just want a permanent close by order
I
of Cobra
will
Commander.
make something for
While
you.
we were asleep, G.I. Joe was defeated by Cobra.
Yeah, so she still thinks they're asleep.
Yep.
So they're low crawling.
I wonder.
Steelers.
Yeah, I like that they're hiding behind the berm, and then it's we'll just go over it.
Yeah.
It's like you can still see you.
Well,
I know.
but again, Cobra's not.
Possible
They're not
way.
anticipating this.
Unless we get our base back.
That's true. This is just like
Yeah.
the C team, D team,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah, I mean, they got 3 people guarding it.
Yeah.
You know. So Lady J, she's going to shoot one of her bow staffs, and she's going to light all this foliage on fire to just cause a distraction.
Now
so
watch
they can break into
the
the pit.
goggles of the guy. The
Oh,
Cobra.
it says fire backwards,
Yes,
right?
Right.
Yeah.
But fire.
Yeah.
And now watch what happens at the end when he gets knocked down.
It's just like, ouch.
Ouch. Yeah.
Is it really?
Yes. Like what?
Oh, there it is. Oh.
Like, ouch.
Oh, my God. That's great. That's so great. So
Now they're using the War of the Worlds sound effect.
Yeah, they really are. Yeah, they really are. They're breaking in, and man, it's their headquarters.
Do
Terrible.
those rats have like glowing red Cobra eyes.
They might have.
That
They
was
might have
interesting.
been. Yeah.
But first, let's get these snakes into the brig.
Oh yeah, they're going to throw the snakes into the brig.
Yep.
Get the
Over
generators
the
working.
computers, we know why
So
we couldn't contact
GI Joes
the
have
other
green
Joes.
shirts. Star Trek obviously has red shirts, right?
Yep.
So I really want to see an episode. I really want to see a world where just the green shirts just die a lot. Just Flint's always sending them out first. Hey, there's a suspicious Cobra-looking temple on that island. All you green shirts, go first.
Yes.
Do you know the origins of the red shirt stuff? Like when that first started, or when it was first noticed?
No, I would have been a little bit too young to know when that started, but it's just by the time I was aware of it, it was kind of
just a
already a
thing,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go on a commercial break with ominous times for GI Joe.
G.I. Joe will return after these messages.
I'll show you how to get G.I. Joe. Destro. Of course it's Destro, you fool! Who else can help us? We'll attack here.
Terrifying G.I. Joe. Destro is his name. Destro is his name. G.I. Joe. A real American hero. Fighting Cobra and Destro.
Where'd those jets come from? G.I. Joe headquarters. We've got to find it.
But will they? Read the further adventures of G.I. Joe in Marvel Comics.
Now back to G.I. Joe.
Hanrahan, Timothy P.
And we get all the names.
Yeah, does this seem like a smart idea to you? To like, let's put the code name and their real life name in this database?
Well, I mean, they're all dead.
They're all dead, but they weren't when that was in. They're just reading them all.
No, but I mean, but it would have been in. This was the Joe base, you
Right.
know? I mean, this was. I mean, you got to keep that info somewhere.
I guess,
mean,
yeah.
plus Cobra sussed it out multiple times in the
Well,
show.
yeah,
You know,
that's
they
true.
used their family as bait and
Yeah.
roadblocks and so it wasn't a super tight secret.
Yeah, that's true.
But all these Joes are dead,
We're
Yes.
gonna get the answers.
and they're gonna find out why and how.
But they haven't come across their own names.
No, they have not.
So that's
That's
interesting.
huge. Yeah.
Hey, Flint, we got us some air power, too.
They find some airplanes.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, all this stuff, it looks like Fallout.
A little rusty.
Looks like a epised of Fallout games.
Transports.
Usable, I think.
APCs.
Disguise it with a coat of paint.
Then let's
We're
get
looking
Disguise
at
them with a coat of paint. Or make them
Skyhawks.
look like.
Well, you don't want to,
Yeah.
throw a nice coat of paint on anything, and really you can look sharp and fat. You drove Humvees around the city of LA, right?
Yeah, that's true. But these are. Well, yeah, they kind of look like that.
Yeah. So you've got a blue,
Yep.
non-camouflaged APC.
The Cobra Imperial Post Office Service.
Yeah. And there's going to be a big state address tonight.
State of the Empire.
Deliver State
Yep.
of the Empire address tonight? What in the...
So this is basically
The police?
2017 through 20.
doubt.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It certainly is. And
On our network, we don't
these
get into politics, but
these
you don't have a network, so-
No, these guys might as well be wearing red hats as the Dreadnoughts
Yes.
pull up. The red hats are coming, ladies and gentlemen. So Dreadnoughts show up, and they're cops. So they're Dread cops. You like that?
There you go.
Copyright Joe on Joe.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah, I'm like, that was
Torch,
kind of a
Buzzer, and
demotion,
Ripper.
wasn't it? You just get
Torch,
police
Buzzer, and
officers.
Rip, and they pull out, and Joe's, and it's Flint and Airtight and Barbecue. They jump out on some Silver Mirages.
I don't know if I ever knew the name of those.
That was that was an awesome motorcycle because it had a sidecar. All
Yeah.
motorcycles with sidecars. As toys, they're awesome. In real life, you're always like, really sidecar?
Mask had a car with
Oh yeah,
a sidecar thing.
Yeah. Well, it made sense as toys because it helped balance them.
Yeah.
So you could.
And you could detach them, and they could be another toy.
Yeah,
Those are
exactly.
like-
Yeah, so it makes perfect sense as a toy, but then
Yeah.
you see it functional in real life, and you're like,
Yeah.
I mean, Robin had a sidecar on the Batman show, and it was always, really, Robin?
Yeah.
Really? Get a bike.
Even a pedal bike.
Yeah, pedal bike. Get up
Oh,
and open.
now we have.
Looks like the Mount
This is one of those
Rushmore
geographical conundrums of G.I. Joe. They travel everywhere. So
Yes,
for
they're
no
in North
reason,
Dakota
Yeah,
now.
right. Yeah, for no
From
reason.
Washington, D.C.
Yeah, exactly. But the Mount Rushmore has been turned into Destro and Cobra.
And my favorite is that the satellite can pick up a side view of the Earth. Or ground view.
Yeah, or just someone's video
Commander
camera of the Lincoln Memorial.
Yeah, it's the Lincoln Memorial has been turned into the Cobra Memorial.
Have become one nation under Cobra.
Cobra has conquered the world.
Cobra's conquered the world. ADJ said it right.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Look at that Senate.
That is amazing.
That is great. There's a huge Cobra head on top of the Senate building. Again, probably what it'll look like in 2018. I mean, once they finish building the wall, they're just going to take all the extra material and they'll make a big Cobra head.
Hello. The date on this paper.
And here we get
Same as when we got blitzed by that transmuter.
Barbecue says the date's the same.
Yep.
So they weren't out of didn't go in time.
Nope.
Alternate realities.
Not another time, but another place.
Another world.
World. Yeah.
Another stop.
tank blocking our way. They jump out of the silver mirages, and that they explode. And
For the amount of stuff that they're doing, as far as like just fights and stuff, they're actually getting information across at the same time, which is kind of surprising.
yeah, the show does a really good job balancing all that. 'Cause, I mean, there's a lot of high concepts that they have to get across to a young viewership, and they do a wonderful job with it.
Now, did ya?
So the Dreadnoks capture that group of Joes.
He looks like he's about 15.
Yeah, well,
That's odd.
I think that virus is wasting him away.
And de-aging him.
Yeah, de-aging him, and frankly, it's driving him crazy.
Yes.
Steelers going nuts.
There was an episode that I remember. Now we've gone to the devil. Oh, I thought
Yeah.
they said that because he couldn't say I've gone to hell.
Right.
So the devil is like close enough.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
that girl's got her butt hanging out.
Uh-huh.
Like, Baroness has got her own little loyal female Cobra soldiers, and she is in no clothes.
And there's the Statue of Liberty as the Baroness.
That's great.
And that wouldn't be Washington because maybe that's supposed to be just
they
another
were just
statue in
watching-
Washington.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, they were just watching on their video camera.
Yeah. Yes, maybe if it's like every parallel universe, then the Baroness should also be a lesbian.
Oh, well.
Because, it always has
Well, then all the guys should be into each other.
Well, no, they don't. They never do that. It's because this is, television is written by
That's true.
straight men mostly.
That is true. That is true. So then I would say then this is progressive by not making her a lesbian.
Yes, exactly. It's also a cartoon for kids, so
Well, also
that probably
cartoon
wouldn't have
for kids,
happened.
But they deal with romance.
But
They
yeah.
deal with romance. And we going to be continued with missiles heading for the Skyhawks with our Joes in it. Aaron,
G.I. Joe will return.
I'm so excited with this episode.
Was this on a Thursday and a Friday? Do you remember? It's
I
like,
don't
to me,
remember
it feels
exactly
like it
what
should have been
day.
like, I gotta get home to.
It is so exciting. If it was over a Friday to a Monday, I would have
yeah.
killed myself.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking it wouldn't have been.
It would have been the worst. Like a whole weekend of this. Like, I mean, there've been a couple, like the mini series obviously were 5-parters, and there's a
Right.
couple other 2-parters. This is like the best cliffhanger. Like,
Yeah.
they're in another world. They got
Yeah,
missiles.
because you just find that out right before it. Yeah.
Yeah, like they got missiles. They've been captured. Like, this is everything.
I love some of the names in the credits. They could be G.I. Joe character,
Well, they named them.
yeah,
Well, they named them after them.
okay.
They used a lot of their real friends' names.
Oh, okay.
For the real names of the guys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they totally did. When like Larry Hama would write like the file cards, or they would come up with names for these guys, they would pull names of dudes that they worked with. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, they did that on Star Trek. The Jeffries tube is named after Matt Jeffries, the guy who designed the ship.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, I think this is great. I just, it's watching '80s cartoons. Sometimes they're fun for the flashback sort of feel, like the '70s cartoons too. But there's nothing to really hang on to want to watch. It's like, oh, good, Shaggy. They have the
same
another sandwich again or whatever.
They have the same useless adventure that doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, He-Man.
So right. So when you get an episode like this that
Yeah.
has real growth, and I think Transformers did a good job with it too, and I think Thunder the Barbarian also,
Yes.
which Marty Pasco wrote on
Right.
as well, also had similar things of growth
Yep.
and change and stuff.
And that existed in a parallel universe, I guess,
It-
since the
yeah,
Earth
it was,
been
yeah.
destroyed. Yeah. At one point in there, they had a poster in the background for the upcoming Revenge of the Jedi, which I thought was
in
interesting.
what?
In Thundar.
Did they really?
Yep. So that was before it had been changed to
Oh,
Return.
that's so
So I think
cool.
that's really kind of interesting. So that put, it said, it's supposed to take place in the year 1987.
Yeah.
80. What year was
It was
this?
like 88 or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm like, nope, it had to happen before that because
That's
they hadn't
great.
changed the
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
Well, maybe
great.
that's what caused the Great Cataclysm then in Thunder.
Yeah.
Lucas kept it as revenge, and people were like rioting in the streets because they're like,
And somehow that grew
Jedi's
a
don't
planet.
seek revenge, and then so just riots started, and then it grew to like a civil war, and then nukes got launched.
And that knocked a planet out of its orbit?
Yes!
Because it went
Enough-
between the Earth and the Moon?
Yeah, enough nuclear. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. That is how that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like an.
You're creating a different show altogether.
Oh, that's okay. We're going to create it all. Well, listen, I'm so excited. Aaron Harvey, remember, listeners, you can find Aaron at Geek Filter on Instagram, on Twitter. Definitely go to seek out Saturday Morning Trek. It's where you find all your podcasts. And
It's on
part
the
of a-
Trek FM network.
I was just going to say, it's part of a larger network, the Trek FM network.
Any Star Trek needs you have, we probably cover it.
They really do. Like I would mention something, and Aaron's like, No, that's covered on this show. And I'm like, well, what about, I know this about Trek. No, that's covered on this other show.
We try to be very courteous with the other people's content so we can,
Which I totally love, yeah. And I'm like, well, they really have their bases covered over there. It's an impressive setup. So please go check out Trek FM. Check out Saturday Morning Trek. Keep your eyes peeled for his Green Lantern Star Trek IDW cover. That's what I'm super excited about.
Me too.
And then as long as you're on the interwebs, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Facebook, find me on Twitter, and most importantly, leave me a review wherever it is you're listening to your podcast, because reviews always help the podcast. Because
yes, as we say, there's a magical algorithm that actually helps other people find your podcast if there's more than 2 comments.
Exactly, yeah. and a lot of it really starts with the reviews. So if you're on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you're at, leave a comment, leave a note. Even if the comment's like, this guy's the worst. Like, it should be Joe on terrible is what it should be. Like, just do it. Get me some. Let's get some
Joe
on the show. Joe on no. Well, this is Aaron Harvey. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to see you next week for part 2 of
That's
Words
right.
Without End.
Yep.
Awesome. Well,
in
now
the meantime, I'm just on the pins and needles about
on
what's
pins and
going to
needles.
happen.
And you know what? By the way, we're recording this in your wood panel den.
I am. Yes, it's
which is where Saturday Morning Truck originates from.
It is.
So, Aaron Harvey, now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.